Disclaimer, copyrights enforced. The following is based on true events, facts, fiction, second-party observations, nonsense, hearsay, bullshit. You be the judge. One thing we guarantee is 100% pure entertainment. All names, places, persons, and things, etc. have been changed for privacy issues. This show is R-rated, may contain obscene language, nudity, not for persons under 18. Please listen responsibly. I'm ready, bros. I'm ready.
Hey everybody, producer Pat here. Ding ding, blowhard talk art, getting it right off the bat. Okay, so anyway, Julian and Reimer are off this week. They're out there making it happen, which these guys do it, and they gotta get it done. So they left me here in the captain's chair to pilot this ship this week on my own solo episode. Crazy. It's, I guess it's more, instead of piloting the ship, it's more like I'm floating on a raft by myself in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, just wondering when and where and how I will get where I'm going. So please bear with me, because I may ramble a little bit, but I do have something I want to talk about. So let's get into it. It's a beautiful day, summertime, so I decided to go for a walk. Here I am, enjoying a cold beer, and walking around, so you're going to get some of the ambiance of the big city. I apologize, but also maybe it'll be nice. It's kind of like, a nature video or whatever you want to call it. So this week, what I wanted to talk about was the world of adult films. I was perusing the 101 AVN's top 101 porno films of all time. And it really got me thinking. For one thing, the list stops at around the year 2000, and I think the earliest title is around 1968. And what that made to me was, well, basically, they don't make them like they used to. Maybe in the last 20 years, there's a few out there. There is, maybe I'll shout her out now, Lexi Lust, her Ex-Confessions. I think she's doing a great job of sort of artistic adult entertainment. That's some of the best stuff out there, and you should check it out. By the same token, no one's doing these feature-length films anymore like they used to back in the day. Sorry. Like, there was a time before video where you had to go to the movie theater to see pornography outside of the print and what maybe audio. I don't think so. I don't think there's any nasty radio shows out there. I would love to know if there was. Please tell us at Blowhard Pod if you know of any sort of nasty radio shows that they were in the 70s or whatever. Okay, but so in the 70s, even like early 80s, you had to go to, Dirk's Nasty House down off like in Times Square or whatever the one was. There was a couple in Young Bloor Street was a famous one, and sit in a sticky seat with a bunch of degenerate lowlives to watch your explicit content. And I don't know how easy it was to relieve the pressure in those situations. I'm sure it was happening all the time. Famously, of course, our main man, Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens, he was caught, engaged in self-pleasure in a pornographic movie house. One of the great stories of our time. I think he did it on purpose just because he really wanted people to get rid of the idea of Pee Wee. He wanted to shed that Pee Wee and be Paul Rubens. What a better way to do it. He also looked great in that photo with the goatee and the long hair. I digress. So, you have dirty cinema. And again, a lot of these movies, 90%, pretty simple stuff. There's a leaky faucet. Plumber comes over. He's a hard body with a wicked tan and long hair. And as well as fixing the leak, he bends the lonely housewife over the counter and services her plumbing as well. Enough said. However, there are examples of pornographic films that I would argue are great pieces of art. Now again, art is relative, so you don't at me because, whatever. But there was some care and attention and some craftsmanship put into these productions that make them very, very fascinating. And I just encourage people to perhaps reevaluate them, rewatch them, enjoy them on their own merits, and have some fun. Draw your own conclusions, of course. But at the same time, I believe that there are fascinating works of art that should be celebrated and not ignored. So, going back to the time, of course, when you had to go to Ezekiel's Nasty House, sit down. 1972, a movie called Behind the Green Door was released. You may have heard of it. This movie changed the game. It was, by all definitions, a blockbuster. On whatever its shoestring budget, it was probably shot X thousands of dollars. I believe it generated, adjusted for inflation, like $100 million in revenue. And this is before video, so this is just people going to the theater to watch the movie. So what you have is people, normies, whatever you want to call them, regular citizens, not the degenerate lowlives who are jerking it on sticky seats on, 3 or 4 days a week, but actual people coming in from the suburbs, wherever, who have heard that you have to go see this movie because it is something different, something special, something curious. And they went. And it became a bit of a phenomenon. And this movie is crazy. It starred Marilyn Chambers. The story is kind of simple but weird, where you have a young woman who's abducted and sort of initiated into performing in a bizarro kind of sex review for a bunch of kind of underground elite pervos in top hats and tuxedos and ball gowns, watching this ridiculous, crazy, hard to describe. You best check it out for yourself, but I'll do my best to sort of do it justice. The stage show, which is kind of a weird Cirque du Soleil, nasty, over-the-top production where, if initially the main character is kind of forced into this sort of lesbian performance encounter, which, seems kind of tame, but at the time I'm sure it's slightly scandalous. And then there's this interracial, very, again, like bizarro, circusy, kind of gangbang where she's swinging around on this kind of trapeze thing, getting banged by a bunch of badass black dudes, culminating in one of the most over-the-top, slow motion, super crazy money shots. And then the whole thing climaxes with this power jam of an orgy where all the performers, the audience, every shape and size, midgets, fat people, tall people, top hats and all, in this wild and crazy orgy. And again, it sounds like, okay, well, this just sounds like a typical porno film. Yes, but the art direction is wild. It's crazy lighting. It's in this sort of like weird black box theater. Everyone's got crazy costumes, crazy makeup. The staging is wild. How it's shot is wild. Again, it's like intense use of like slow motion. The music is crazy. Everything about it is like, it's not typical. And I guess at the time, people were saying, like, yes, this movie is not typical. You must see it to believe it. And people went and saw it. And I suggest that you go see it too. Because I do believe it is a work of art. Which is what we're here to talk about today, is the idea of, like, sort of porno as art. 1972, we're still there. Similar film, similar phenomenon. Deep Throat came out that same year. it's less over the top artsy, but it was obviously crafted by people that had filmmaking chops. They thought about the idea that they weren't just making smut, you know, because in Deep Throat, like, there's like the use of montage, you know, juxtaposing edits would make Eisenstein proud. It's crazy. It's awesome, you know, and like that's a movie that's very simple. Whereas like, oh, this girl, she has no sort of gag reflex, so she can really take all the dick. And her doctor says, hey, I've got a solution. And it's a bit more comical. It's a bit more goofy. At the same time, it was a phenom at the box office. People flocked to the theaters to see it. Somehow word of mouth got out there that you had to see this film. It was another one. It made $1 gajillion. And it was sort of changed the game. Everyone had to reevaluate exactly what it was that they thought about, you know, pornographic cinema, because obviously when things start making money, everyone's like, well, you know, that's the ultimate legitimizer, which is, you know, we can debate that all day, but the same thing is like, if there's money to be made, well, then we can't, marginalize that. Let's just think twice about here, because, you know, it may be smut, but obviously if there's a buck to be made, Jesus Christ, you know. Anyway, so go watch the Behind the Green Door if you haven't seen it. It's fascinating. It's part of cinema history, both underground and above ground. Like, it's a fascinating story. Deep Throat's also worth watching. It's not as fascinating. It's an interesting movie. It's a bit more goofy, as I said before. Another movie I wanted to sort of highlight today is 1978's Body Love. This was a movie, it was from France, and it's a very fascinating story as well. One thing was, like, the star, Catherine Ringer, was a pop star in France, so it was very scandalous. It caused a bit of a scandal that she went and did this crazy-ass movie, full-on, you know, hardcore X-rated thing. The story about this movie is that her father decrees to the main character, played by Catherine Ringer, who is young, just in her probably 19, 20 years old at the time, that she is going to lose her virginity at the end of the week or within the next few days at this orgy. That's the story of the movie. I think they're at kind of a girls' school, and it's like, okay, that sounds ridiculous. But again, it's very French. They're a little bit more loose on the morals there, for want of a better term. Beautiful people. But again, the orgy scene that is sort of the highlight of the whole film is this very ridiculous, over the top, again, almost like Cirque du Soleil, overly serious, super artsy, super crazy, choreographed, like orgy that it's but again, it's quite hot, very entertaining. Everyone in it is beautiful. It's also quite ridiculous, but again, shot with sort of a loving attention to craft and detail. Like, people, they thought about it. What are we going to do? You know, how can we make this as sort of interesting and kind of beautiful as possible? Another great story about Body Love is the soundtrack was done by this guy, Klaus Schultz. Klaus Schultz is like a grandfather of krautrock. He is a titan of electronic music. He was briefly he was in the band Tangerine Dream. Maybe you've heard of them. They've been around forever. They've done a gajillion soundtracks. And he himself did the soundtrack to Manhunter, Michael Mann's Hannibal Lecter movie from the 80s, which is a fucking kick-ass movie. Before Silence of the Lambs, there was Manhunter. He also did the Bling Ring, Sofia Coppola's movie in 2013. He did the soundtrack. So this guy's legit. He's got about 69 albums out there. And so you have this French pop star, a titan of krautrock. You got this, like, beautifully shot in this kind of French mansion. It's again, and they're not thinking in terms of like how it's a dirty movie. They're thinking it in terms of how can we make a good movie? Like, what are the best things we can bring to the table? Which I find awesome and fascinating. Another great movie to like. Well, we want to talk about a particular movie, but Tinto Brass was an Italian gentleman who worked in the 70s and 80s. He was seen mostly as what they would call a softcore movie maker, like director. Even though if you watch his movies, you're like, this is the most hardcore softcore I've ever seen. I'm not too sure where you draw the line. His film, Every Girl Wants To, I believe that's the title, is basically about how all women inevitably deep down do want to have butt sex. And he explores it in a gorgeously shot, actually well acted, pretty interesting, comical, great art design. Like, again, these movies were like, they're works of art. It's awesome. He made another movie called, I want to say it's called Salo Salo, about the entertainment industry, which is worth checking out. Again, just got hot Italians doing it. They get the hottest chicks. I know that's, I guess, the thing, but also very handsome dudes. Whatever, it's all over the map. These guys are great. I bring up Tinto Brass because that's a good segue to who I consider my favorite all-time adult film director. Well, of course, he shot a lot of video, but let's not split hairs. Andrew Blake, who is a genius and an artist of the highest order. He does have the #1 film on AVN's 101 Top Porno Tapes of All Time, Night Trips, which is a amazing techno sort of cyber dreamscape film. It's hard to describe it. You got to kind of watch it. It's completely original. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's got some crazy hot scenes to it, and he was one of those guys that came out like Tinto Brass. He was a softcore guy. He was initially worked with Playboy, and then he did a lot of work for Penthouse, and then he eventually branched over. I believe started his own production company, Exhibit A Films or something like that, where he started making features. His movie Hidden Obsessions is one of my personal favorite porno film of all time. It's absolutely amazing. Again, it's hard to describe. He tends to not use like stories. They're more these sort of surreal, dreamy stream of consciousness. Sometimes not even really sex. A lot of like lesbian, a lot of sort of strange latex, body BDSM, but not harsh. Again, it's like, so the maximum amount of elegance. He's a true artist. It's just, if you don't know Andrew Blake, get into Andrew Blake, because this dude is crazy awesome. Again, Hidden Obsessions has probably one of the best lesbian scenes involving this ice dildo that must be seen to be believed. He's a true artist. And so, like, again, I could talk about Andrew Blake all day. Tinto Brass is another guy, too. The guy made a lot of movies. He made some legit ones, too. He made a movie about the Italian underground in World War II, a bit of a war drama. So, you know, he was a guy that had chops. Some of these guys, and girls, again, sorry, I'm like, some of these folks were true filmmaker craftsmen who are bringing sort of their all to sort of what we would consider a marginalized genre or art form, which is, of course, adult films. Albeit the fact is, why it does make a lot of money. People see them. So why we have to separate the two. You know, Hollywood has always sort of blacklisted the adult film industry. They've never really been able to coexist. Andrew Blake was one of those guys that sort of existed on the margins for a little bit. He was kind of courted. He never really got his shot. You know, some of these folks are, they're not seen as legitimate, and that's what I want to talk today. Is that there are legitimate artists out there who have made legitimate films, even though it involves like hardcore fucking, that should not be discounted. This is art, And as a cinephile and as a filmmaker and someone who just loves, movies, I think you have to look at these films, these pieces, these works for what they are, which is like the works of people who care. Like the really good stuff are people who took time, they put care and attention into it, they thought about it. And that's what makes everything great in life. And that's, I guess, maybe what I want to tell you guys here today is like everything that you do in life, if you put time and care and attention and you think about it and you do it with passion and with fervent love, no matter what it is, even if some people hate it, you can always rest easy, understand that, you know what, you did a great job. And that's what matters. And the audience will come. People will come. People will like recognize they recognize honesty, they recognize truth, they recognize effort. So if you don't phone it in, if you think about it, like even if the fact it's about, a scene, it's got a bunch of doggy style and shit in it, if it's done with, awesome care and attention, I want to watch that. Show it to me. Hit us up at Blowhard Pod. Are you making this stuff? I don't know. Let's share it with us. Share it with the world. I want to know. Do you have any ideas? Again, share it with us at Blowhard Pod on Twitter. That's the best way. Reach out. Start the conversation. I want to know. Here I am at one of those little bookshops on the street. The best of the best lesbian erotica. Great. Someone's putting it out there. I'll probably take it and read it. Maybe I'll give you guys a review in a couple weeks. Anyway, I think that's all for this week. We'll keep it short. I just wanted to share this with you. I'm glad you guys sort of indulged me being by myself. Julian and Reimer will be back next week. Things are going to be great. And the summer's going awesome. The world is opening up. It's hot out. The weather is awesome. I hope you're staying cool. I hope you get some sun, get that vitamin D. And again, if you want to share, if you have any of your favorites, please share them with us. Love to hear it. Get in on the conversation. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you hate. Watch Behind the Green Door. It's a weird movie, man. It's worth watching. Anyway, I'll leave it there. This is producer Pat, and saying have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Ding, ding.